Hey Wayne,
Hey, how are you today?
doing all right. How you doing?
Doing good. How'd the weekend treat you?
Real good, real good.
Yeah? Good stuff. Good stuff. How did your MKLA meetings go with Dormacaba?
They went really, really good.
Good turnout.
Yes, had
Nice.
15 one that Friday and 18 Saturday.
Oh wow. That's good turnout, man. That's
Yeah.
good. That's awesome. Well, good stuff. Anything fun going on this week?
No, not really. Just been busy today. I was the only one in the shop.
Only one in the shop?
Yeah, there's three of us, and one was out on sick leave, and the other one was doing mass drills. I was
Ah,
doing I was doing all the service calls today.
gotcha. You got somebody working with you too, or
No,
gotcha. You want somebody to work with or no?
no,
I
I,
don't know.
I work for a firm.
You what?
I work for a company. I don't own it.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Um, All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started here in just a little bit.
If you need somebody to sign your petition, I'll do it for you.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Sometimes the rules and stuff just get they it's a little goofy, but we got it. I had to have them all in by Friday, and I didn't know
Oh,
that I
okay.
didn't have very much time. So
Yeah,
that just kind of happened. Um, but it is what it is. So I appreciate your support though. Thank you very much.
no problem.
Hope, Hopefully we can go in there and make some changes and kind of get the get the good old boy syndrome out of that particular division. Open up, beat down the walls for something new. But that's for another day. All righty. Well, it is 5 o'clock. We're gonna go ahead and get started right up in here. Slow here today, no rush, no pressure. Good stuff. All right, cool. Um, if anybody needs anything, just hit me up and let me know. Shoot me a message. I'm going to go ahead and get this one started on our live stream. This one's going to go through Facebook. Locksmiths United is once a month, and it's the first Monday of every month. And this one goes live on Facebook, just so people are aware. It will be live. It will be recorded. If you don't want to be heard or seen, then just go ahead and put those appropriate settings on your end on your Zoom. Recorded. As far as everything else goes, let's see. Where did my Zoom meeting go? There it is. All right. So everything is going good here. All right. If you have questions, you can private message me on Messenger. You can send me a text. You could private message me here. Or if you do need to raise your hand and unmute your microphone, if there's something really going on, let me know and we'll go from there. I actually didn't even think about how much I had to offer on this particular one, but there is a lot of information that is going to be put out on this particular meeting because we have a door operator installation. We have log in. We have a door operator installation. We've got a double mag lock to install. We've got touch sense, exit devices. We've got a lot of stuff in this one here. So we go to Wayne's Lock Shop and go to the forum section. This is where I post, and this is how everything's rolling. This is why everything's working. Having these meetings, having the every Monday meeting with Locksmith Live, and then having the once a month meeting here with about an hour's worth of content, it makes me put this information on here and actually start distributing and organizing what I've been doing. It's kind of like peeking into, if you could look over my shoulder, this is as close as you're going to get. In fact, it's actually probably better because I try and take into consideration that people are trying to learn. And I take the photos that you would want to take up close that you just can't even see sometimes. You'd have to really get in there to look and take a look and see what's going on. So for this project, we're going to be using several products, okay? And first of all, the main thing is going to be this a Legion Locksmiths double mag lock, okay? Now, let me tell you why we select the double mag lock. The double mag lock is going to be one of the best options if you don't have a center mullion in the middle, okay? So I really try and actually avoid the magnetic locking system if possible. We try and find another way around it. But when we have two doors that come together and there's no center mullion in the middle, you either have to do vertical linkage, which is awful and a nightmare, and I really avoid even more so than mag locks. Or you got to do mag locks. There's not a whole lot of options with those cases. So on this particular one, we're going to be using a system just like this. This is a Locksmiths MG, but I think we use the 1200, to be perfectly honest. I can't tell. Let's see here. Specifications. Let's see if that one's the 12. I believe it is. Because they have a 600 and a 1,200 pound, and I'm 99.999% sure that we use the 1,200 one. All right, so here's what the door looks like when we first come up to it, okay? We've got an alarm lock, 1250 deadbolt. So that means that this customer, for this to be considered electronic access for them, they have to unlock the door well, not manually, but I guess it's kind of manually. You don't push a button and it works. What happens is you would put your code into this lock that's mounted down here. That's also mounted down low below the 36-inch mark. So it's kind of out of compliance anyways. And you would then turn the knob and it would unlock the doors. You also have to make sure that the flush bolts are locked in place on this side. So this side of the door is stationary and this side locks right into it, okay? Now, what are the problems? Can anybody think of some problems that would cause? Is that a lot of thinking and a lot of action for the customer or the end user, relying on people to be able to make sure that this door and this system gets locked up every night? I would say so. When somebody has to come by here, make sure that the flush bolts are locked in place every single night. Make sure that this door then comes in and then punch in your code and lock this door up. And that's the sequence to lock this door every night and then undo it and do the opposite in the morning when it's time for everybody to come to work. That is definitely complicated by today's standards. And this project I did with John Nolan with Reliance Security. He's here in this meeting as well, and he confirmed this is the 1,200-pound maglock system. I would not put the 600 one on here. Definitely front main entry door, big, heavy duty. You want the 1,200-pound system. So at the end of today, we need to get rid of these internal push bars here. We need to get rid of the alarm lock, and we need to make sure that this opening is secure, easy to use, and looks good when we're done. Now, I just want to go ahead and throw a couple things out there. Doing electronic access and all of the time and money that we've put into this one opening, let me just throw some numbers at you. This is a $10,000 door opening now, okay? We've put a very heavy-duty door operator up on here. And I can't remember exactly what we charged for that, but I'm pretty sure it was in the $6,000 to $7,000 range. We also included this electronic access installation with this double mag lock, which was about $4,500 to $4,800. So right there, we're at or over $10,000. Now, because we work on this door all the time, or we've done the previous work in the past, we also got to do the continuous hinges, which is another $1,000. So I would actually say we're probably encroaching on $14,000 to $15,000 for this opening right here. So if those numbers are catching your eye and you maybe want to start shifting from rekeying regular locks, for $25, $35 a piece, and really start gravitating towards the electronic access side of things, there is a ludicrous amount of profit that can be made on this. So just from a business standpoint, I really want to impress upon you that this is where the division is headed. This is where the field's headed. This is where the industry is headed. And there is a lot to be done here, and it's not going away anytime soon. So really pay attention to these things. Take some electronic access installation classes, join Wayne's Lock Shop. There's a ton of information in there, and do whatever you can to gather this information, because this is the cream right here. All right, so here's the other side of the door, a little bit more of a close-up. Continuous hinge that we mounted on there a couple of years ago. We're gonna have to start tearing all this stuff off the door. We're gonna have to start pulling parts, pull the door pull here. We're gonna have to pull the lock off, and we're gonna have to pull this bar here. Okay, one more shot of the door there. Once we start pulling all that off of there, I'm going to begin to start installing the magnetic locking system. Now, my favorite method is to just take the instructions and take the template. For some reason, they always fold it right along this line right here, and you actually need to fold it along this line to actually tuck it up in there and get your appropriate measurements. A little bit irritating. I wish they just folded on the line when they put it in the package, but whatever. Then we're going to be drilling here, 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 and here. Okay. It tells you what size drill bit you need for each one of these. This hole is going to go all the way through. There's only one hole that goes all the way through on each door, and that is for the through bolt. It gives you an indication it's going to go through the door, the through bolt. Okay, that's going to get drilled. That's going to be the larger hole on here. I drill these a little bit bigger. They call for a smaller hole, but almost every time that we just drill that tiny little hole and call it good, there's usually an adjustment issue, and they need a little bit more room, I find. So we end up having to uninstall it and then drill those holes out a little bit bigger and allow it to wiggle and move a little bit more. What happens is this center hole, if you just had one hole and the through bolt for your mag lock, that plate has no side stability. So it could turn and move at any point in time and completely not align. Heck, it wouldn't even allow the door to close properly. So these holes on the side are very, very valuable and very important. Okay, just to give you guys an idea as to why that particular thing is there and what it's doing. Okay. So right here, again, you're going to drill this one all the way through. And then on the side, these get drilled on the inside, but that's it. Nothing on the outside. And if anybody has questions, we got quite a few people in here, actually. We got 15 participants today. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat section. Be happy to answer them for you. Okay. So right here, that one's going to go all the way through. This one is not. This one is only going to be on the inside. And then these holes up top, this is where your wire is going to come down in. These are very small holes. This is only an 1/8 inch hole because that's where your mounting screws are going to go. So as we get into it, I always start off with small drill bits. This is probably maybe an 1/8, maybe a little bit bigger right here. And that's going to get us started. Starting off with the small drill bit is going to get the hole in. It's going to require less pressure. I'm holding a drill up above my head on a ladder. I do not have a lot of leverage. In order to save my arm, because we're going to have to do a lot of drilling on this project, if I want to be able to use my arm all day long and not have it burn out, I'm going to go ahead and start off with that small drill bit, poke in and pilot drill all these holes, and then expand them as needed. Okay. So now we've got all of the holes drilled on both sides. We're prepping the door first, and then you'll notice that we do have the frame side as well. We've got these two holes where the wires are going to come down in. Those are going to get expanded upon. The smaller holes I'm going to leave at that 1/8 inch size because we're actually going to need to drill and tap those for all of the mounting screws that mount the mounting plate. Okay. Here is what the mag lock looks like sitting on the cart. Notice that we've got the plate pulled off. And the first thing that you're going to have to do is pull this here. I've got a picture of it somewhere. You're going to need an Allen head wrench, and it's going to stick down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there's 8 Allen head screws in there. You need to make sure all those are backed off all the way, totally and completely. And then this plate on top, this one right here, will slide off. So the nice part about this, and the nice part that I like about this Locksmiths unit, is you don't have to hold the weight of the mag lock up as you're trying to screw everything in. You mount this plate, and then it literally slides and clicks in place after you have it mounted, which is very nice. I've installed a lot of different brands and manufacturers of magnetic locking systems. This one by far is the nicest as far as installability. So once we have, you can see I dump all my other parts in this cart too. If you don't have carts, guys and gals out there, grab some. It is definitely a really, really nice way to do things. Okay, just having that cart right up there is really, really nice. Allows you to have your drills, drill bits, everything that you need ready to go so that you don't have to fumble around. And I have to have everything laid out. I know what I need. I need to be able to see it so that I can actually utilize it. Okay, here's the, this picture got a little blurry. I do apologize, but you can see how these little spots just click in, it slides in and slides in place and then locks. And then those Allen heads go ahead and really lock everything down in place so it can't even slide away from the plate. Very sleek, nice system. Here's a little bit closer shot of that magnetic locking system and how that plate slides and interacts with it here. Okay. There. And in timeout. Got too much internet stuff going. I wonder if the it is. Surely we're not going to have technical difficulties. Bear with me 1 minute. Okay, here we go. So now here's the door stop, okay? The door stop is a thin piece of metal that protrudes down from the top of the frame. Now, normally this wouldn't bother us. However, when we have to mount this magnetic locking system right up here, this is definitely going to get in the way. Now, there's 2 ways that you can bypass or get around this being in your way of your magnetic locking system. And doing this after setting up a whole bunch of different systems, a whole bunch of different ways, trust me, let me tell you what will not work. Trying to say that we're going to avoid this and we're actually going to mount the mag lock a little bit in is not going to work because your spacing and your plates, the plates that go on the door will not align properly. And the screws are very specific. You do not want to do that. It's going to be a nightmare for you. It's just going to waste a bunch of time. Now, one option that is a great option, my favorite option, would be to actually have a spacer plate that's about a 1/2 inch or whatever thickness this is. There are different thicknesses, but 1/2 inch is usually pretty common. That spacer plate of aluminum then gets bolted up into the top, and now you've got a flat flush surface to work with. That is my preferred way to do this. However, in this application, when we did the mock-up or the dry setup, I actually set the mag lock up there and I look and see where those plates are actually going to interact with the door. If we would have done that coming down, we didn't have the 1/2 inch to mount it. If you'll notice, when we come back a couple of pictures here, My internet is just running really slow today. If you'll notice this picture right here, see how close we are? So as this gets enlarged, this is only like 1/8 of an inch right now. As this gets enlarged, it's going to be almost all the way down here. And what is behind this little fella? Glass. Okay. So if we drop this down, here's the actual doorstop. You can see it right here. It's this piece right here. So if we came down this far, we would be mounting down into the glass. Not cool, not good, not fun. So we're going to have to take that out. Here is the angle grinder. Angle grinder with gloves, face shield. Angle grinder is a very dangerous tool, especially being used on a ladder. So use all your safety equipment and PPE. And then we just cut that doorstop right out of there. I just score it on one side, score it on the other side, grab it with some vice grips, fold it back and forth, and it pops out of the way. Okay. A couple different photos of it here. And then we'll take that grinder and we'll actually make sure that all of this is nice and smooth. You don't want any humps. You don't want any bumps. This all needs to be a blank, flat canvas to be able to mount your magnetic locking system to. Much like so. See how it's nice and flat all the way across? I'm also going to go ahead and you can either hit this with the angle grinder blade, or you can have a file or a rasp and file those rough edges down. Now, mind you, this is going to be, at the top of the doorway. The chances of somebody actually touching it, engaging it, or getting cut are pretty rare, but anything that we do installation-wise, if we were installing a surface mount strike on the side, you would definitely want to make sure that you take the time, clean up those edges, and make sure nobody walking by, kids, people, or anybody could get cut on your work after you're done. So make sure that everything's nice and smooth. Smooth this up here, and then hit it with a little bit of paint. Okay. They sell specific Duranautic paint. You can pick it up at Ace Hardware in most cases. I've seen it there. We didn't have any for this one, so we just use a dark color paint, a dark brown, a dark black. Just get rid of the silver, and then the magnetic locking system is actually, I've got it taped off so that the mag lock is going to cover 90% of this. You'll notice that we have two fairly large holes here. The reason for that is the angle that we needed to run the wire from both sides or from one side to get it to come through that hole, we actually needed a little bit more room in there. So even though it only calls for a 1/2 inch hole, we jumped up to either 3/4 or maybe 5/8 on that one so that we can just make that bend a little bit easier and make it easier on ourselves. I'm pre-planning the wire run so that John's job is easier. Every time we do a job together, my job is to make John's job easier. My job is to make the other person who I'm working with's job easier. If my job is to make their job easier, their job is to make my job easier, right? And we're helping each other and we're making things more efficient. If you look at it in those terms, your job's going to go 1,000 times better, and you're going to understand what the other person needs from you so that you can accomplish this in the most timely manner and the most efficient manner possible. Okay. Pull the tape off. You can see the dark paint matches pretty well. And again, by the time we put the mag lock up here, you're really not going to be able to tell any difference. Okay. Now we're going to start mounting that mounting plate. You can see the mounting plate. This is one of my favorite things about this Locknetics mag lock mounting system is that I can spend all my time holding this very light plate up here. I can move it. I can adjust it. It even has these oval type holes. And these are the first screws that you put in. The ones with the oval holes allow for adjustment and movement in and out. Okay, so those are the first ones you want to do. I do one here and one on the other side, and then start adjusting things and dry mock up that mag lock in there. See how it fits, see how it interacts with the plates here, and test fit everything before we cinch everything down and drill all of these holes here. Okay, so the way that it allows you to test fit is what I find really, really, really useful with this project. Now we've got the mounting plates, or these are the magnetic plates that actually go on the doors themselves. And the first thing you're going to have to do is hammer these little roll pins. So these roll pins are what is going to sit in here and prevent the magnetic plate from shifting or spinning like a helicopter. And yes, I have actually seen and documented, and I will post it. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but there was somebody who installed a magnetic locking system with just the center bolt, and that plate would spin like a helicopter. These pins prevent that from happening. We just like the bigger holes to give it some more room so that it has a lot of adjustment and flexibility, okay? So we start, you need to be on concrete. That's your number one tip. You need to be on a super solid surface. Do not do this on wood. Do not do it on flooring, and definitely don't do it on tile because you'll break the tile. So you want something very hard and very stable and solid behind there. And then you just, I prefer to use pliers or vice grips or, you know, a Leatherman or whatever. There's not a lot of room. So there's a really good chance you can mash your fingers doing this. Okay. You don't want to do that. So hold it with some pliers, tap it in with a larger hammer. This plate is now completely done. And this one just needs these two added to it. Once you get those added in, you're set and ready to go. You can see that we've got the mag lock on the mounting plate now, and we're test fitting. I'm test fitting the plate and how it interacts with the mag lock. Either it needs to go forward or it needs to come back. We don't want it pushing. We don't want it so tight that it actually starts pushing the doors open and they're not fully seating and sealing and coming closed. What could happen is you'll have air, you'll have a draft, you'll also have a pest problem if you do that. It's just really not professional either. And it gets so cold here, it's not very efficient. If you have just a tiny little gap, if you have an 1/8 gap in the middle of winter when it's 19 below out, you're really going to notice that gap as soon as it gets that cold. Okay. So test fit and make sure that everything is nice and tight. Here's a picture from the bottom where we see that test fit, the plate is engaging. And what I like to hear is when that door's coming close, you should hear just a little clang. And when you hear that little bit of clang, you know that this plate is engaging fully with the mag lock itself. Then as soon as you power the mag lock on, you'll actually hear an additional click, kind of like that. That's about all you'll hear. That means that it's close enough and it's flexible enough that it is able to get sucked down flat and engage and lock. And now you have that full force of that 1,200 pounds locking this thing together. Here's another angle, just making sure that plate is nice and straight. You can see how it's engaging right here. This looks amazing. This is exactly what we're going for. This is what we want right here, okay? Now, this hole here has nothing to do with our installation. That was for the vertical linkage on the flush bolt side. So now you can see what this magnetic locking system looks like in place after it's fully seated and ready to go. We can now pull this off, and our wires are going to run right down into here when it's time to do the wiring. We're going to pull this off, and we're actually going to put all the additional screws in there. Now, at this point, the plates on the door can stay. They're done. There should be a washer, a rubber washer, and a metal washer. There's actually 2 rubber washers. I highly suggest you put the 2 rubber washers and sandwich that in between the metal washer, and your through bolt, this center bolt, goes through everything. Those rubber washers act like a suspension system to be able to allow that plate to conform and move. You have to realize when the door's coming down, it's making an arc. When it's coming closed, that means it's not moving straight ahead and straight closed. What's happening is you're getting an arc. The arc is coming in like this, and it's bringing the door shut. So if it's just a little bit off, it's not perfectly flat. You're going to have a little deflection one way or the other, and that rubber washer, those rubber washers allow the plate to move. When you allow the plate to move, then it can suck up tight when it needs to. So again, that goes back to drilling out those holes on the side for those side pins. Like I say, almost every single time we'd love to, work off the tight parameters that the manufacturer gives. But almost every time we do that, I end up having to take the plate back off and drill them out just a little bit more just to give it that extra bit of flexibility. So we just preemptively went ahead and did that. Here's the other side. You also notice this little piece here. This needs to go towards the edge of the door, the outside edge or the opening edge of the door. This serves a purpose, okay? It serves a purpose, but it needs to be in a specific location. So both of those plates are mounted. And then this is what it's going to look like from the outside. All you're going to see is this big carriage bolt. Now, sometimes we'll take the time and paint that carriage bolt depending on what the customer wants. It just depends on how picky they're going to be. This customer's really nice and hasn't said anything, so we'll just leave it as is. This is also a really good indicator for when you walk up to a building and you don't know how that electronic access works. You don't know what kind of lock is on the other side of the door. Maybe you need to gain entry to a building that has a power outage or has an electronic access system that's failed. This little, this massive bolt at the top is a clear indicator that you are now working with a magnetic locking system. So keep that in mind for future jobs. Okay. I believe that is the end of the first portion of this. So now we're actually going to go ahead and start mounting. This is going to be part 2. We're going to start mounting the exit devices. The exit devices are going to be a touch sense exit device, just like we see here. This is from Securitron. And you'll see they have aluminum and the Duranautic ones. These can be cut. They can be ordered in oversized or more than 36-inch units. You can get them in a larger one and you can cut them down. You can order them in the standard size door, and you can cut them down even further if you need to for custom doors and narrow doors. And the reason we use these, there's several reasons that we use these. The number one reason is there's no moving parts, okay? There's electronics, and it senses the electricity in your body to release the door. Now, it already has a override built into the exit device. You can't really see it here, but right over in here, there's an actual override push to exit button that acts as your built-in push to exit for this system. So number one, what's the number one problem that people have with most openings, most exit device operated openings? They're mechanical and they have a lot of parts and they're really expensive to fix and they fail and they need alignment all the time. All of that goes out the door with this system. Okay. It's not here. Like there's nothing to move. Okay. They're really light. They'll work with a 12 or 24 volt system. And the other thing you have to consider when we're doing a magnetic locking system, there's 2 ways you can really do it. One is with a sensor, a REX or a request to exit sensor. That's going to be your 2 forms of egress. You have to have 2 forms of egress. So you can have a request to exit, and you could use a request to exit with these as well. It's just not necessary because your 2 forms of egress with this touch sense bar are, one, your body touching it is the first form. And the second is that override button, that push to exit that's built into the device itself. That is your second method. If you used a conventional method, you would have a request to exit on the top, and you'd also have an additional button that would be mounted somewhere on the wall so that you could exit. Now, what does that do when we have to add that button? It adds extra time, extra materials, and more importantly, more wire and running more wire to that location. Running wire is going to be one of the most time-consuming portions of this job. So the less we have to do it, the better. If we can run 1 wire to this push to exit device, that's it. You are happy. You're a happy camper, and you are saving time and money. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. That is why they're expensive, but there's no moving parts, and they cover the 2 forms of egress. And once we put them in, I don't think we've ever had a failure on these. They just flat out work. So we're going to start off by measuring and looking at our 36 right here to 48 right here. This is the good zone. This is all the goodie right here. What I'd like to do when I'm choosing my location to mount this bar is I want to use existing holes. This door is already Swiss cheesed, and we do not want to add any more holes to it. So if I can use this hole to run wire down in here and have that pop out through, that's going to be amazing. I also want to choose locations where the exit device is going to cover up any existing holes. This is my whole process. All of these questions are running through my mind when I'm choosing the location to mount this. Number one, it has to be between the 36 and 48-inch mark to be legal for ADA compliance and fire code and all the building code and just locksmith hardware code in general. The second is covering holes in aesthetics. So I'm probably going to use that as my center line. Okay. Now, here's a couple tips. I'm going to put some green tape on the door, some painter's tape, and make my marks on that. Now I'm not marking directly on the door itself. We have a question, or Jim has made a statement here. Jim says, in my state, you have to have a Rex button with a 30-second opening for ADA. Yes, that is in most cases true. You can still have the 30-second delay with this. Once you touch it, it will hold it open for that 30 seconds, and the override button will do the same as well. So it builds everything all into this one package. Now, we get a lot of controversy because some people don't think that that counts, and you have to have two separate devices for that. Here's my suggestion for you. If you have any questions about the system that you're setting up, the only person, the one and only person that can actually approve that system is your local AHJ, or local jurisdiction authority. Whoever has the authority to make that decision, which is your local fire marshal, is who you need to talk to about this system. Every time we put an electronic access system in place, we run the system by our local fire marshal and get it back in writing that we can go ahead and do that. This system is approved from the fire marshal or the local jurisdiction authority holder, and we can then move forward with that. That way, we take all of the other questions out of the equation. You can see this posted later and you can say, hey, you guys didn't do that correctly, or there needs to be an additional form of egress here. That is not true, because we've gone to the local authorities and we've gotten this approved, and it is now on them. They have taken the responsibility of approving our installation, so we don't have that anymore, okay? Just so everybody knows, that's the best way to go about it. Now, in Jim's case, if that's what that person wants, then he would have to build his system in accordance with what that particular jurisdiction authority holder wants, or what his state and local codes want. Each state is different. Each county is different. You need to make sure that you're dealing with your local people. Once we get past that, you can see that we use the tape. I'll use the tape on here to both draw my center lines on the piece of tape that's under here, and that little piece of tape also kind of helps hold it in place while I'm making my marks, while I'm getting my measurements. And I like to make my measurements on each side of the door, but sometimes your door, or the entire building for that matter, is not level. So there's two ways to make this level. You can either do your measurements and measure 46.5 here and 46.5 to center here, or you could do it on one side and put a bubble level on and actually make the bar level. It depends on what your application calls for. Your customer may have a crooked door, but they want that bar to look level. They may want it crooked to be crooked with the door so that everything looks crooked. That's up to them. But this is my way of doing it. On this one, we're going to measure each side, and we're going to set it to that measurement on each side because everything looks really, really straight here. You can see I've got my center line. And then when I'm holding that exit device up there with the tape, I'm actually marking these two holes here. These are my mounting holes. So you can see I've done that on both sides. Now notice that when I take the tape off, there's no more line. Even though the line's going to be covered up by the exit device itself, if you have extra Sharpie or marker that goes over to the edge, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Okay, that's not going to look that great. Let's see here. We have another question. Brian Schaefer has asked, what is the advantage of the Securitron TouchSense bar versus the Locknetics TouchSense bar? I am not aware that Locksmiths makes one right now. That or we couldn't get a hold of it. So it's probably a supply chain issue. I'm sure both of them work completely fine. We use, I mean, Securitron and Locksmiths are the top tier, cream of the crop. This is the best stuff you can buy. It really is. This is all high end, very high end equipment. So you just, it's, there's, how do I say this? You're dealing with the top best of the best of the best anyway. So it's really going to be a matter of looks, aesthetics, price, and supply, and whether you can get it or not, and what time frame you can get it in. All right, great questions. Good stuff. Good statements, guys. Thank you. All right, so now that we've got our little painter's tape here and we've got our marks on, what we're going to do is, now there's a couple different ways to go about this. They send nut zerts or blind nuts that are supposed to go in here and actually clamp in place and give you some extra threads. On this particular installation, the aluminum on this door was thicker than most common doors. I don't know where they came from. I don't know who made the doors, but it was a lot thicker than most normal cases. It was so thick that it actually wouldn't pinch down on that nut zert. It couldn't clamp and grab properly. It'd be like trying to use a pop rivet that's not long enough. Okay. What that does do is it's actually a good thing though. I just want to explain why I'm not using the manufacturer supplied blind nuts or riv nuts on here. I'm using a drill tap, and I'm actually going to drill and tap the aluminum on the door. The extra thickness will give us the extra threads that we need to create a very solid bond and allow us to go ahead and attach this to the door. So I use these. You can get them from Milwaukee. You can get them from Greenlee. Klein makes them. These little drill taps are awesome. Little bit of lubrication, drill the hole out to, pre-drill it. I always pre-drill with these. And then they literally drill the hole and start tapping the hole for you too. Now you don't just run it right in. You do it just like you do a tap. You use it in the impact driver and you put it in a little bit and then pull it back out. Tap in a little bit and then pull it back out. Tap in a little bit and it takes several times. You're in, out, in, out, in, out, and slowly you're actually tapping that hole all the way through. It's just a nice, fast way to do it. And the 1/4x20 taps can break, but they're usually pretty solid. So I really feel pretty comfortable with these on here. Pretty solid. So it's got to go down. Now that we've got both of those drilled and tapped, now you can see that we've got, these are your 1/4x20 screws that actually go directly into the door. Okay. So now these are all set up to take 1, 2 right there. And there's some little star lock washers that go under these. Make sure that those lock washers go in place. They kind of grind into the plastic and you're good to go. Really not a lot of room for error on this one. So you really got to make sure that everything's lined up nice and perfect on these. You can't really move them around too much. That's why I tape the bar up on there, and I actually use a drill bit that actually self-centers itself. I use the same drill bit diameter of the diameter of this hole so that I have a pinpoint perfect center point to start on these. Okay. Very, very, very important. Probably the most important part of this installation. You'll also notice that there are some electronics and there's some wiring that needs to happen here. This is on the hinge side of the door because the wire is going to need to run down inside the door channel and it's going to need to pop out right here. So that hole where I showed you the hole that we were covering up, we're actually using that hole. Instead of drilling more holes, taking more time, making more of a mess and poking more holes in the door, we're actually going to utilize that so the wires can come right out here and plug directly into this. So that what I'm getting at is there's the hole right here. The electronics, there's 2 sides. This side that has the electronics and the other side has nothing. It's bare. The bare side goes to the open side of the door and the side with the electronics goes on the hinge side of the door. Here, you can see that we've got a couple threads right here that's drilled and tapped. You can see that that's just a little bit thicker than normal. For some reason, I could not get those nut certs to clamp down on there. This was actually a better bond than the nut certs, which is very bizarre, but it is what it is. And then here's the actual hole where the wiring is going to come through. Wire's going to pop in through here, and then that connection will plug right in to this little connection right here. Okay, here's another picture of, and that would come in and just plug right into there. Now, right on the other side of this is that additional push to exit button. That push to exit that is built into the exit device is right on the other side of this. Here's a picture of it coming in as we're tightening these screws down from the side, just like so. Everything goes in nice, flush, tight, and easy, as long as everything's lined up. The other thing that can happen if you use nut certs is if you use the ones with the lip, you'll actually have a little bit of space in between here and the door. Sometimes that may not look that great. So this is another reason why, if you can drill and tap these, if the door is thick enough, that'll give you a nice flush look to it as well. If that does happen, if you do use your nut certs and you've got a little bit of gap or a space in between here, a little bead of caulking, something like that, can fix that and make it a little more aesthetically pleasing. All right, so now I've got the exit devices mounted on both doors, just like so. John's doing his thing. He's up in the ceiling, pulling wires down, and these wires are going to come right over into here so that we can run them down the door. We're going to run them through an armored loop and run them down into the door to the touch sense bars. And then we've also got a couple extra ones that need to come to the mag lock itself. Okay, we've got some wires coming down from the operator here. And then here is our power supply. This is our 4 amp Securitron power supply. Now, again, you know, we just kind of use what works. And Securitron, Asa Abloy, Locknetics, I know there are competitors there, but you're really dealing with the best of the best as far as equipment goes. So we use the 4 amp power supply. And one of the reasons we really use that is because of the MagnaCare warranty. Okay. You can also mix and match UL listings. So this is going to work. This is going to be UL listed for whatever you decide to use it with. It's going to carry its own listing. Okay. So operating temperature, 122 degrees. It's going to be 12 and 24 volt power. You can choose either or. Amps that it's going to draw is 4. Monitoring options. It's going to have a lot of different stuff that you can do with it. The other thing, the main reason we use this is their warranty. This thing, anything can happen to this practically. And I'm not talking for Securitron, so I can't say exactly what they will and will not honor. I can tell you these things have fallen, been vandalized, bad things have happened to these. And no matter what, we send it in, they rebuild it, they send out a new one, they have not charged us for it. That is why I use them. That is why John prefers them. And this is why we use these particular units for power supplies. They just plain work. Okay. And they're readily available. Black gasket sealer is great for Duranautic hardware. Great. Yeah, black gasket sealer, like from the auto parts store. That's great. Perfect. Don't have to send advanced replacement. Don't even have to send anything in to get it replaced. Yeah. So John is chiming in here and saying, agreeing that this is why we use these power supplies. You just can't beat the warranty. I mean, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Don't take advantage of the situation, but if you buy one of these and something happens to it, they will most likely send you a new one and you will be able to take care of your customer. So here's what it looks like up in the ceiling tiles here. We mount this very heavy duty mount, got 2 heavy duty mounted screws right there. Notice that we also have power. We've got 120 volt power. We are not touching the 120 volt power. We are not licensed to do so. I am not aware of any state that doesn't have an electrician's license for that. So what we do is we have a electrician wire in a pigtail, and then we can plug this unit in. We can confirm that it works, and an electrician can then bring some of this 120 volt power and hardwire it in themselves. We do not touch the 120 volt aspect of this job in any way, shape, or form, nor can we. All right, so John's looking at his little spaghetti stream of wires coming down here. We've got some coming down through that maglock, and then we've got some coming through that are going to need to go over to the exit devices themselves. Here's just a little bit of a different angle. We've got our ladder, wires going everywhere, ceiling tile popped out. That power supply is literally mounted right up inside of here. Couple more photos of different things going on. Looks like John's going to be we're going to need to bring wire over here for our keypad. We will cover that as well. And then here's where the wire is going to be actually running into the top of the frame, just like so. And that will go to inside our wire loop, our flexible wire loop, and go into the door. Always want to make sure that your wires are protected. Okay, can't leave just empty wires, just raw wires sitting out anywhere. Even if they're just in their housing, it's still a really good idea to make sure that everything's covered up. Just kind of a look at the ceiling from down here at the bottom. Now you can see John's running that wire that we just looked at. So here's our pigtail actually here. Power actually comes up and over into this cord, and then we've got power down here so that we can test the unit, program it, make sure that everything works, provide temporary security until they can get the electrician here to hardwire it. That way the electrician and us aren't on top of each other, waiting for each other, wasting time and money. So again, John's putting and feeding that wire from the frame into the doorway here so that we can bring it down to our exit device. Now, it's going to be my job to get rid of all of this, okay? All these holes, and delete this kit right here, or delete all of this. This is where the original lock came in. Now, why do we need to make sure that we delete all this? We're deleting all of this because we can't have a mechanical deadbolt back in here when we get done, okay? If we're going to have exit devices and the magnetic locking system, we absolutely could not have a second form of egress required to exit the building. So we have to get all of this stuff out of here, okay? Very important part of the job, often one of the most overlooked portions of the job. Securitron will honor the warranty even if you wire it wrong and short it out. Yep. Even if you hit it with a hammer. Yep. They will replace it. And he has tested this. All right. We don't suggest doing that, but the point is we use that product because they by far have the best warranty in the industry that we've ever seen or come across. One other portion about this picture here is the wire that's running into this keypad. Okay, we're going to have a keypad mounted right here. So we're just noticing all of the things that are going on. So now we have a big empty cavity and a bunch of holes to fill. That's where I'm going to jump in, and we're going to get the GKL Products Door Deletion Kit. First thing that we're going to do is, how do we install a plate or a cover plate when there's nothing to grab onto? Well, these little yellow bridges are going to be perfect. You insert them into the key, break the little piece off, insert, rotate, twist, slide it where you need it. And now it's going to, as you put the screw in the middle, it's going to use the frame of the door to push against and hold your plate directly in place. Okay. This is what it looks like. You can see how they twist and conform to the inside of this track frame here. Again, this is a little unusual. This is where you're getting all that extra thickness from. There's 2 extra channels in the back of this, but it doesn't matter. These bridges are still going to work just fine right here. So insert in, rotate over, click, and then slide to adjust where you need it to be. This is going to be the door deletion kit for the mortise cylinder. It's going to be just like a deadbolt deletion kit. just smaller, and it looks nice. It's aluminum, and it's going to match the finish really, really, really well. This is going to be the outside portion. The portion with the two little holes is going to go on the inside. There is a reason for that. There is a secure and a non-secure side to this as well. The secure side is the flat side. The non-secure side is the one with these two little holes. These two little holes are here so that that key that we just saw can actually tighten it in place so that you can't get enough pressure on the smooth side to back it out and get access to it. Now, there's not really anything that they could do. There's no security flaw if they pull this off of here, but you just don't want people meddling around with it. You don't want to give them the option to vandalize or try and, attempt a break-in of some sort. So you can see it just goes in on the outside like so. That little post comes through. And then we just tighten up the inside. See if we got a picture of the inside one here. There it is. Okay. And that's what it's going to look like on the outside. And we'll see what it looks like on the inside, just like so. So your key goes in, tightens everything down. That has now been deleted. And you've got a really nice, clean looking system. It really blends in well. And I'm telling you, when you're standing a little bit of ways away, you can't even hardly tell. Okay. Here's what it looks like from the outside. Then you saw the inside. They sell them in aluminum and Duranodic. Highly, highly recommended. They're great tools. So now that we're continuing to put this door back together, this hole was too large for a nut zert or a blind nut to work. But we need to mount the handles back on the door. So I'm going to go just below this, and I'm going to intentionally try and cover up as many holes as I can using the handle. So this is an impact driver with a nut zert riv nut setter that's got a 1/4x20 nut zert that's going to go right here. And now I've used my longer ones. I've got longer stainless steel ones that we ordered specifically for mounting these handles in this thicker aluminum. Okay. Just like so, it's going to go right on there. Just crank it down. You can over tighten it and pull those threads through if you're not careful, and you could damage the mandrel. So I just give it, snug, a couple more clicks, a couple impacts, and then back off. Here's what the nut zert looks like. You can see that that one's a little bit longer than the ones that were sent for the touch sense bars. Quite a bit longer, actually. It's going to go right in and cover up that hole and give us a nice mounting location. Now, you can see that this is the hole that was left that we cannot fill. It wouldn't fill with the nut zert. So we had to mount it right below it, and then you just use a wrench. I highly recommend gear wrenches too. Then you can, gear wrench it in there and tighten it down a lot faster. Okay, we've got to do the other side. We've got another one right here. Mount that into place. Tighten everything up, and now our handle is mounted. Okay, our pull handle has been mounted properly. Now we've just got that pesky little hole at the top. We're going to cover him up with a sticker. Okay, we've got these two holes right here. We're going to cover up those with a sticker too. And you can see these metal stickers from Professional Business Products work great. And I've got a separate one that we'll probably put over that. Okay. See if we got a picture of that here. So we've got this one that's covering up some holes down here. It's also got my phone number and a QR code. If they need anything, they can call me. And here it is right here. Nope. You can see we've got one other sticker that's going to cover those two holes up, just like so. And this is on the inside, so there's no real security threat. On the outside, the metal handle, the pull handle's covering it up. So they would have to use a drill or something to try and get through this, and it's not going to do them a whole lot of good anyways. All righty. So now it's starting to look like a door. Okay. We've got our metal protected loops that the wire runs through. This is a flexible connection that wire sits in. It's now protected, comes from the frame into the door, down into here, and the wire goes right into there. I've got the touch sense bars all mounted. All of the holes have been filled, and we're getting to the point where we're starting to wrap this project up. Okay. Let's see if we got any questions. Why not slap some dummy cylinders into the old lock body? You could put some dummy cylinders in there, but then you're going to still have the Adams Wright deadbolt in there. Okay. And I don't want any chance of that deadbolt. I don't even want it in there to be an option for it to be used. That's just my preference. You could do that. I'm not saying that adding dummy cylinders is wrong. I'm just saying this is my preferred way. I think it's a little bit cleaner, and it doesn't even offer the option to bring that deadbolt back if somebody wanted to try and do it later. Let's say some other locksmith comes by and is like, hey, we want to add that deadbolt back to the bottom. They specifically asked if they could have that deadbolt left there so they could lock up and double lock for extra security. I said, absolutely not. It will not even be there when we're done. So hopefully that answers your question there, John. Nothing wrong with dummy cylinders. This is just the way I prefer to do it. So either way is fine. And it looks like we're just about wrapped up for that one. Got one more set of pictures here, and then we'll be done with this. So you can see again, there's that protective flexible wire loop. We've got everything all mounted just the way that it needs to be. We've got our door operator mounted up over here, and we've got all our holes filled on this side, mounting plate at the top, and the wires, or I'm sorry, not the wires, the ADA door, automatic door sticker is right here too. That needs to be fully visible, and do not block that with anything. That's part of the project. Now, John's got all the wiring coming in. He's got his wires plugged in where they need to go. We've got green lights here, and we also have two backup batteries. So in the event of a power outage, these backup batteries will maintain security. Mag locks are fail safe. It is the only way they can operate is in a fail safe mode. Fail safe, meaning if they fail, if they lose power or they break or something happens to them, the building is safe, not secure. They unlock. There is nothing locking the door if these fail. The batteries prevent the building remaining unsecured during a power outage. Now, you'll have to do some mathematical formulas and find out what components are in your system and how many amp hours, how many amps they draw per hour. Then you need to figure out how many amp hour batteries you need, or what size of an amp hour battery you need to maintain that security. A good rule of thumb, like in this application here, we have two batteries holding a 1,200-pound mag lock and an alarm lock PDK 3000 keypad. I would comfortably say that these batteries would maintain security for between 4 to 6 hours. Okay. It might go longer, probably would go longer, probably more like 8 or 10. But to be safe, I would say, explaining this to the customer, it'll probably provide you between 4 and 6 hours of security until the power comes back on. After we're done, we clean everything up, and we actually show pictures of us cleaning everything up so that when we leave, I know we left the job site very clean. Sometimes we've worked with other contractors. We clean up our mess. Somebody comes in behind, makes a whole new giant mess, and we get blamed for it. So I always make it standard procedure to take pictures inside and out that show that we cleaned everything up, vacuumed everything, blew everything off. And if you really, really, really want to impress your customers, one thing you should add to your arsenal, anytime you work on aluminum storefront glass doors, clean the glass with glass cleaner inside and out. That job and those doors are going to look the best that they've ever looked after you leave, and that is going to impress your customers. So here we are, all said and done. We've got our stickers, we've got signage, we've got our deletion kit, we've got directional indication signage for push and pull, we've got our handles mounted back here, and everything about this door is now back and ready to go. Okay. We've also got our keypad alarm lock PDK 3000, so we can enter our timers in here. You can add a schedule. You know, you want it to be open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, closed Christmas, Thanksgiving, weekends, holidays, etc. You can all dump all that programming into this through this little port, and you can actually program everything in through a laptop. There you have it. We're taking pictures of the concrete, making sure that everything is cleaned up and that we can prove that it's cleaned up. Here's one from the inside. You can see the inside. Everything's nice and clean. We even shake the rugs out, clean up everything around your area, and send this all to the customer. Here is the final product, okay? We've got our door operator that we installed several months earlier. That'll be a separate class or separate meeting one of these days. We'll show you how we installed that. I've actually included that video on this post for this project in Wayne's Lock Shop. So if you want to know how to install that operator, you could easily do so. I was going to play the video during this session, but we're already coming up on an hour. It's after 6, and I think an hour is going to be good for us on this one. Okay, so right here, we've got this video. If you are a Wayne's Lock Shop member, you click the video, and it'll show you how we installed the HA9 heavy-duty, high-traffic, belt-driven, extra heavy-duty door operator. And with that, if there's any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them. Great project, Wayne and John. Thank you so much. What about the fire alarm? Yes, you need to have it written into your proposal that the customer needs to have a fire and sprinkler company tie that magnetic locking system into the fire alarm. That is not something that we can touch. We're not licensed to do it. We can't do it, but they can. All right. Brian says, nice job. Good info. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions, comments, concerns? You can either put them in the chat box or you can unmute your microphone and ask them directly. If there's anything else, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple comments.
What's up, buddy?
Okay. As far as you were talking about having an electrician wire it directly to your power supply.
Yeah.
What I would recommend, what I do before I even start on the job, instead of having the electrician come after me, I have them come before me, put in an outlet above the tile, ceiling tile, so I can actually just put a cord on my power supply and plug it in.
Okay, that is cool. And that's what we're talking about with that pigtail. It depends on the application. So what you're saying and what we're saying is the exact same thing. That's great. The only concern that I have is sometimes the code is going to require, or that particular power supply is going to actually ask for or require the hard wiring of that 120 volt power directly into it. So you could leave it the way that you said, just have your outlet and plug it right in. That is okay if it's okay with code, the customer, and the AHJ of that particular job. So excellent point. Thank you.
The other benefit of that is if you ever have to replace anything on the power supply, you don't have to have an electrician come out again. You can just unplug it.
Yep.
Do your repair, plug it back in.
Yes. And they actually sell UL listed pigtails at the hardware store. So you can get a UL listed plug that will actually go right into it. Now, we prefer to take the can in and have the electrician wire it, just because technically it's 120 volt power. So that way we say, hey, no, we had an electrician do it. That's on them. And then we'll decide whether or not that needs to be hardwired in later or not. But excellent point. Thank you. Great for bringing that up. What else you
got? As far as backup batteries and taking out the existing lock, what I usually do is dummy cylinders, and I'll reverse the faceplate on the lock. So it's actually covering the swing bolt or the hook bolt, whatever you're using.
Say that one more time.
So put dummy cylinders in the lock.
Yeah. Okay.
And then take the faceplate off, reverse it, and put it back on.
Okay. You can do all of that.
In Oklahoma, we have had areas where we've had ice storms and we've had power outages for over a week.
Right.
So in certain cases, I've had to go out on like solid metal doors that were mag locks, and actually drill a deadbolt into the door and tell them, okay, as soon as your power comes back on, I got to come back out, take it out, and cover all this up.
Yeah.
So if there's an existing lock that you can disable in my area, it's definitely better to disable it, have it still available to enable.
Sure. Yeah, that and this is going to be very job specific, and it's also going to be installer preference. So you bring up some great points. Would it be nice to leave that there and hey, in an emergency, we could just, switch some things around and boom, we can lock that up? That would be great. I know a few things about this building. Like number one, it's a medical facility, so they already have backup generators on site. So the chances of losing power for more than a day or two are going to be pretty limited on this one. But to what you just said, that would be a nice addition if you could leave that in place. You're just going to have to weigh the benefits and advantages or disadvantages of, am I going to have a freaking maintenance guy come in and try and tinker with things and move things around and then activate that, flip my plate around, put a thumb turn on there and lock it. And now it's interacting. You have two separate forms of egress to get out of there. And now it's no longer in code and compliance. Now, obviously I document everything really well. So I can say, here's how we left it. You guys altered it after we left. That's your fault, your problem, not mine. But I like the deletion kit the way that we did it for this particular job. I can definitely see where doing it your way would come in handy for a different application. The other thing is like you just said, now you got to drill a deadbolt on a hollow metal door. Well, if it was a fire rated door, you probably just ruined the fire rating on it too. So it's, there's a lot of other factors that can come into it. I'm just explaining it why we did it our way, but thank you for at least acknowledging that there are other options out there.
And I did do a quick look. I was thinking that they made a actual faceplate for the Abrams, right? That was a solid one.
They do. Yeah, it comes with that deletion kit. Do yourself a favor. A lot of times those bridges are kind of countersunk in, so you need to stack two of them together.
Oh, I love the bridges.
Yeah. Yep. So awesome. Cool stuff. Did you have anything else? Did you have some?
No, that was it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing those points up. And I'm sure other people had similar questions. So thank you for asking them. Anybody else have any other questions, comments, concerns? Feel free to unmute your microphone if you would like to. If not, go ahead and put anything in the chat section. Yeah.
Hey, Wayne, this is Matt from Cocoa Beach.
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Not much, man. Doing good. Glad I got on. I was a little late, but definitely worth the time.
Cool.
If in your state you were required to have a low voltage license, how would you handle that on this particular job? Like same job, same installation, just you can't do any wiring. How would you handle that?
I hate doing wiring to begin with, and I normally don't do it. So I would partner with somebody who is licensed to do it. Number one, if your state requires a license for you to put the low voltage wiring in, you either have to get that license or you need to hire somebody who carries that license and you use their company, their business, and their license. So for example, I'm Wayne with Tri-County Locksmith Service. I partner with John with Reliant Security. If we were licensed in Colorado, he would obviously have his license and I would do the mechanical installation, the actual bolting of the parts on, the cutting, the drilling, etc. And John would then be there to plug in the wires and actually make sure that everything is correct to the low voltage specifications.
I can add to that.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Beautiful. Thank you, sir.
Yes, not a problem at all. Go ahead and add to that if you'd like.
Like I do a lot of jobs that are similar to that, where another company will install the panels, they'll run the wires, and basically in our state, the low voltage requirement is, because I have low voltage access.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they'll have everything done. All I got to do is go over there, connect the wires, and I'm done.
Right. Yeah. And then, I mean, I don't know what the laws are, but I don't know how much you actually plugging those wires in. Like, do they leave like you plug the strike in, like if you're doing electronic strike or something, they just leave the 12 volt or 24 volt and you just literally click and plug it in?
They leave the bare wire. I connect the quick connects and plug it in.
There you go. Yeah. So it would just depend on how far, what you can or can't actually touch. Now, I mean, if you look into it and find your local states and rules, I would think that if it says you have to have low voltage to touch the wires, that you might be in a little gray area there. But the main point is to get everybody else to do their job to the maximum potential that they can do it, so that when you come in and do yours, you're doing your portion of that job and not the entire thing, right?
And my job is also verifying that they are using the correct wires.
Right. Thickness, the proper gauge, that everything is wired correctly. It's wired in the, fail safe or fail secure, or whichever 12, 24 volt system that you're using, that they use the correct gauge for the distance that it was traveled. There's a lot more. I can't, John and I teach a 2-day class, 2 full solid 8-hour days, 16 hours of low voltage and electronic access installation. I can't dump all that into an hour, but those are all things that do get covered in that as well. And you bring up some really good points, Jim. Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns before we wrap it up? Good stuff. All righty. So I'm going to run over what we do here and moving forward. Every single Monday is going to be Locksmith Live. That is a 30-minute or so little kind of coverage of what I did over the last week. That is every Monday at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. This is Locksmiths United. This is once a month. It's about an hour long. Sometimes we have a guest. Usually we have a guest. This time we did not. But this one goes into a lot more in-depth, and it's about an hour long, goes a lot more in-depth either on a project, something industry related, a company, manufacturer, supplier, depending on the guest, and how it can add value to you and your business. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and leave the mics open for just another minute. If you have questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and let me know. If not, then we're going to wrap it up and we'll call this one good. Thank you so much for everybody for showing up. I hope you were entertained. I hope this provided some information and you can put some tools in your toolkit. Maybe you saw something that you haven't seen before, and you can utilize that to make more money for you and your business. All righty. With that, everybody have yourself a wonderful evening. Enjoy the day. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.